Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome back.
Welcome back. Here we are for the infinite few minutes.
Yes.
Yesterday we had 40 infinite minutes. That's how infinite a minute can be. It's can turn into 40 of them.
Be whatever you want.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we thought today we'd pick up on that where we left off yesterday, I guess, another aspect of the feeling of security that the ego is looking for in the outside world. And yesterday we touched a lot on the money aspect and how that's a very big game that we play in our lives, and it make it mean so much about ourselves. And so that may still come into the conversation a little bit today. We thought we might just take it a slight different tact and sort of look at how the identity, like how our identity actually does get formed throughout our life, and where we use that as a way of feeling secure and feeling safe in the world. And then sort of ultimately going to the point of, well, where is that ultimate sense of security coming from, the infinite self, when you can feel home anywhere, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. That's the ultimate truth at the end of the day. So yeah. So
that's the topic.
Yes. So I was thinking that like it might be a good idea to kind of go through like just a bit of an example, I guess, of how those identities how identity gets formed and changed over the years. So I was just thinking, like, if you start off with when you're a little kid, like, a lot of us don't have memories, obviously, until maybe we're like 2 or something. We start to kind of maybe have a visceral memory of something happening to us, but like that's when we start to have that sense of separation, like, oh, I'm separate to my brother over there and he's got my toy and I want that toy back. And we start to have that sense of I'm not one anymore with anything. It's sort of so it can show up, that type of thing, just that sort of sibling rivalry or that sense of this is mine, and I've got to protect that. And then as you sort of get older and you start, I was just going to say from myself, both Nat and I were raised Catholic, so you've got that whole overlay of religion that kind of came into it as well, and going to church every Sunday and going to a Catholic school, so all the sort of connotations that come in with that and what you make that mean about yourself too, from what's taught and what you just perceive yourself as well, to pick up from the teachings around you. And then you might have friends that sort of influence you as well, so based on your personality. So I was a very quiet, shy kid, so I would tend to have friends that were kind of probably a little bit more on the outskirts of, like, not the popular group, like that kind of the ones that were kind of a bit more out there and confident and that type of things. I would sort of tend to have a bit more of the quieter, sort of on the edge sort of friends, and then you start going through university, say, and then I chose to do graphic design and I chose to move away from home to study. So then I had to start, I always had a bit of an independent streak anyway, but that really kind of established that for me, where I have to kind of fend for myself now. I have to work to support myself to go through university. I'm away from home. So I had to create all new friends. I didn't know anybody there. So I definitely felt challenged through that period, being quite a shy person. I had to really kind of push that identity that I had around, I'm a shy person. Like, that would be something that I would say to myself, and then I'd have to kind of really push past that to kind of make friends. And then other people say, oh, you're not shy at all. And it's kind of like, oh, you realize those stories that you actually tell yourself, that's actually formed part of my identity in the years. And then so I keep going on. Okay, got married. So then you have that overlay, the roles that start coming into your life. So okay, now I'm a wife, and I've got a mother and father-in-law now, and an extended family on that side. And so what do I make that mean about me, and what do I perceive that role of wife looks like? How do I show up in the world as that? And then you've also got the role of playing daughter, obviously, in the family. I've got Nat as an older sister, and then I've got 2 younger brothers. So there's that whole dynamic of, where you sit in your family as well. You make that mean something about you. Or if you're an only child, you may have got a lot more attention because you're the only child, or it could go the opposite way as well. And perhaps you've got really academic parents and they just expect you to be really academic and not give you a lot of attention or affection, and just kind of leave you on your own to sort of be very independent thinker. And so it's all these type of how we've grown up in the world and our perceptions of the world. We start to create our identity. It's like these layers get built on top of each other. So it's not just like, oh, I show up and this is how I am in the world. It's like we learn, we watch, we observe, we react to what's happening around us. We have this perception of whether we feel safe or not safe in an environment, and we make up something based on that. So we modify our behaviour to. So probably the main difference between Nat and I would say growing up is Nat was very extrovert, very confident, whereas I was the complete opposite. Same parents, like, you know, so it's kind of like, how do we end up? Yeah, so different. We came in with different personalities, of course, but then my perception of Nat would be probably a bit more of the rebel, independent, going and doing what she wants to do, whereas I kind of felt like, oh, I better toe the line, keep quiet, not say much, that type of thing. So it's kind of just interesting how it shows up, and that went through my life. I had to really kind of challenge that identity and security that I was finding in being the quiet one and the hiding away all the time and that type of thing. So I don't know if you have anything.
It is interesting. I agree, like having that personality that's a little bit more outgoing and a little bit more, I guess, adventurous and stuff like that as a kid, which was seen as a bit of a wild child sort of thing, not in a way of going and breaking the law. Like, obviously, I joined the police later, so I couldn't do that. But I always wanted to be in the police, so that was the funny thing. Like, and that was just sort of like, I think, drove part of it as well, was that sense of action, all that sort of stuff.
I probably want to put in that context that our mother was and is very, very kind of domineering, controlling, kind of. That's how she maintained the peace in the house, if you like. So to her, Nat would have been a wild child that she couldn't control, even though Nat wasn't necessarily going and breaking the law. Like she said, it was just not within the bounds of what she would perceive to be a well-behaved child. You know, that's
but it's interesting because, and I was actually very good at sport as well, and so I was in the popular group, probably because of sport more than anything. So it was really funny that I had my big come down, I guess, when I went to high school, because I did dominate my primary school quite strongly, sort of thing, in terms of being quite popular. But then when I got to the high school, which was so much bigger and so many more people who didn't know me back then, it was sort of like, oh, holy crap, like my personality like completely changed at that point, because I was suddenly not that. There was just like this, that my sense of security of who I thought I was as this sort of sports star type thing going through primary school, suddenly wasn't there anymore. And I was fighting for that. And I did fight really hard for it, and I didn't do too badly actually through most of high school. But then that changed again, because I had 4 years of high school in one school, and then moved for my final 2 years, which didn't have sport at all. These were our final 2 years of school. It was all academic. So suddenly I had to shift everything from sports to academia, whatever it is, to sort of stand out that way as well. So it was sort of like always this striving thing, because that was really pushed by our parents in many ways. So senses of security were changing along that journey, having to re-identify and find a new thing to be, sort of the star at type thing. And I guess that's always been my personality, is that sort of star aspect.
And it's interesting too, like I had the sport aspect. I think we all kind of did. We're all quite naturally good at sport. Our two brothers as well. But I would say I definitely, this is where it gets really funny with the way the ego kind of works, is that, as I said, I grew up very kind of feeling very shy and quiet. And I definitely, that's how it did play out for me. I was very much the observer and would sit back and watch. I got very good at learning patterns that way too. But I would be very good at sport too. And like when I look back, so the story I've told myself is that my security comes from being the quiet one, sitting in the background, not rocking the boat, flying under the radar, that type of thing. But then when I look back and you sort of be honest about what actually happened in school, I was always in leadership type roles. Like it was kind of like I was very good at sport. I was this colour captain. Like, we'd have the 4 different groups of the students would get all divided, and you have the different colours and you compete in carnivals. And so I was a colour captain in primary school and high school. So as much as I wouldn't say I was part of the popular group, I was always in these leadership type positions. Like I was,
a prefect.
Yeah, it's prefect, put in charge of like a year 7 class when I was in year 10, same in year 11 and 12. Like, so all those type of things, even though but this whole story was running the whole time, like, oh no, I'm the quiet one, I'm the shy one.
How funny is that?
So it's just funny, like when you look back and you sort of be honest with how other people kind of see things in you, but maybe you don't believe that about yourself. So you have this story running that, and I didn't want to challenge that identity for some reason. I was getting something out of it. Of course, my security was coming from that story that I was telling myself. So yeah, I was just thinking that's funny, the difference between the two of us, but we've both been very, good at academia and sport and all those type of things, but how it showed up very differently for us. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest identities I ever let go of, and I remember the moment, because I had been in the federal police for 13 years and I was giving it up. And when I had to hand back my gun and my badge, it was like, holy crap, like, this is what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. And I did that in 13 years and it was pretty amazing. And oh my God, now who am I? Like, total loss. And that's really what started this whole journey of consciousness work, because it wasn't long after that I split with my husband back then. And my whole world had fallen apart like in about 3 months. And it was like, holy crap, like there is literally no security anymore I don't have a career. I don't have a husband. I don't have a home, essentially, sort of thing. Like we were trying to work out what was going on with that.
Like your income source kind of changed and
everything changed. So I pretty much just ran away to New Zealand for a while. But it was so weird, like to have this and then start on the consciousness journey. That actually is what kicked off the whole thing to then try and do John Demartini's program to try and really work through some of the stuff that was coming up at that time. And it really worked.
Yeah, so that's what happens probably a lot for people too, how they actually start to think, oh, there must be a bit more to this, or start to question yourself, because usually, well, it doesn't always have to happen this way, but it often happens because some big life change happens for people, and they're sort of forced to start looking a bit deeper about what's going on, the role that they might have played in that. So someone's might have been married for 20 years and then the partner just suddenly overnight decides to leave, or maybe it's been coming a little bit but you didn't think it would happen. So divorce happen, or a parent dies that's always been your rock for your whole life, like and that suddenly happens, or you've got a pet. I mean, this was probably for me, like two dogs that were like our children, and having one of them die in front of me, that was like probably the most traumatic thing I've ever been through in my life, and that completely shifted. Like within a day I could see all the identity I had tied up in being, it was just like amazing how much was tied up in that fell away in that moment. It's just like, holy crap, like just how much security I'd put into that role, and it was filling all these voids for me as well. Like, and it's just like, oh, now I have to look at all this stuff that I haven't been addressing for a while, or it could be an illness that comes on. That happens a lot for people too. They get cancer, or they have a near-death experience, or maybe someone close to them gets cancer. Like it can happen in all different ways to really, it's like a wake-up call. That's the way I see it anyways. Like it's a wake-up call to kind of go, where have I been unconscious about how I'm living my life, and falsely gaining security in this life from the external, the people around me, the relationships, who I think I am, versus this space of knowing that inside yourself, like that feeling inside yourself can never be taken away. That's where the true sense of security comes from, and we're almost forced to drop into that space sometimes by the outside world. We're sort of humbled by things that happen to put us into that space to wake up.
Hopefully wake up. And I guess that's the thing, you have a choice in that moment whether you wake up or not, because it can go the other way too. And I was particularly thinking about health at this stage, where it becomes an identity. I'm a cancer survivor, which is really cool. Like I'm definitely not downplaying someone that goes through cancer and survives. Like, that's amazing. But it can become an identity as well. And, even wearing the pink ribbons and all that sort of stuff, it's like, that's great that you're supporting that and supporting awareness and research and all those sorts of things. But it's sort of like, at what point does it become an identity? And then you're using it as a crutch rather than, you've just, all you've done is, put your power now into that. And or being sick all the time, always being sick. Always got something wrong with me. And we know a few people like that, one in particular. that uses that really as an identity because it dominates the conversation. Like we've always got something to talk about because we're always talking about medical stuff.
Yes.
Whereas running off,
I'm
always really busy. Like I've got a very busy life because I'm always going to doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
For this checkup.
What drives that behind it is like, okay, well, this is actually how I get, attention. I get more, maybe acceptance by people because they, not even acceptance, probably not the word. It's probably more that attention.
I feel sorry for you as well. So I guess,
and it could be, a very unconscious strategy, but so it's not saying someone is purposely manipulating that situation, but definitely like a sense of this actually draws my family together when this happens, when crises happen, my whole family comes together and that's my highest value. So, the ego makes that up as just like, well, if I stay sick, and as I said, this is very unconscious. This is not something you're sitting here saying to yourself like, well, if I just stay sick, then my family will look after me. But this is where it becomes like the ego takes a hold of that and makes it an identity. And just like, you probably know people in your life that always have drama going on, just constant drama. The kid gets sick, then the kid gets better, but then the dog dies, and then the car breaks down, and then leaves, and then the other daughter goes up and starts doing drugs. Like it's just one thing after the other. It's just like every time you speak to that person, it's just like, and you have to sort of step back and go, okay, part of their identity gets that security of being the rescuer all the time, likes to be the one that fixes things all the time, likes to jump in and be the savior.
Always needing rescuing. Like
it could be the other one.
The other one is the victim, playing the victim role all the time.
Sometimes we do both. That's the thing. We could be both in the same lifetime. This is where it gets very compartmentalized. Like you have to sort of step back and go, how do I show up in each of these situations? Like I started to see where I would show up very differently with a certain group of friends, and then I'd be with other friends that I would say were like less conscious, at the time, because I probably had some judgment going around, oh, well, I'm really good because I'm doing work on myself now. And it's like, that's another ego identity that you have to work through when you start on that awakening journey. It's just like that self-righteousness that comes out of like, well, I know better than you, so I could tell you exactly what's happening with you, and you need to do this and this. And that's another identity too, getting security of like being the one that knows, being the one that has the answer for people, wants to fix problems.
Being the sage or the yogi.
Yeah. So there's all these different things, and there's millions of them going on at the same time. That's the thing. You have to step back and kind of go, wow, how do I show up here? How do I show up there? What's the difference between the two? What role am I playing? What am I getting out of that? Like, okay, I get acceptance out of this role. I get security out of this one. Those people recognize me and they think that I know a lot, so they come to me for answers, and that makes me feel really good. And it's not to say that some of this is not coming from true. Obviously we all have true intention behind some of the things that we do in our life, but the ego is so pervasive and so the layers.
Very clever.
Yes. It starts to speak your language. That's the thing you probably notice too as you start going on the awakening journey, whatever that looks like for you, and you start to question this stuff. The ego starts to speak that language too. So this is where you have to get you have to spend a lot of time just sitting back and within yourself and really noticing what's going on, not getting engaged in it, because the ego starts to speak that language too. It starts to speak in that consciousness language now, and you start to then go, like I said, that self-righteousness sometimes comes up that, oh, well, I know more than other people now. And so the ego starts to tell you like
coaching everyone.
But it's just fascinating how, as your consciousness grows, so does the ego, because the ego is actually part of that same consciousness. So the ego, it looks like it's getting stronger sometimes. Like it feels like, wow, I thought I was getting past this thing. And it's like it's really coming up in your face. But as your consciousness expands and you come to know yourself more, the ego does too, because it's part of it. It's all part of the same energy, but we don't always see it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess we've been talking a lot about roles and subconscious beliefs and all that sort of stuff up till now. And I guess the other part is the actual physical outside world that we go looking for our sense of security. Yeah. So it starts obviously with our parents. They're our nurturers and they provide for us when we're, babies and things like that. So that's a natural.
Or not. Yes.
That's true. So that becomes a very natural sort of instinct to have your parents as that sense of security, of course.
Yeah.
And then as you go along, then it might be your school, it might be your friends, it might be your job. And job is a big one, definitely, that sense of security. And this is where I sort of I guess, enjoy in some ways sort of challenging people a little bit because we live a travel lifestyle and we've been talking travel lifestyle for such a long time now, for the last 5 or 6 years. We have challenged people along the journey of, oh, I couldn't do what you do. I'd love to do what you do, just travel full time and stuff. But I could never do that because of, like I need my job and I need my income each month and stuff like that. And it's like, that could all be gone like tomorrow. Like your whole company could collapse tomorrow. Like companies collapse all the time.
Yeah,
big companies go. Like what big companies collapse that would never have collapsed. What happens to all those people's jobs? Banks collapse. What happens to all those?
I had that almost happen. Not the whole company collapsed, but I came back from my honeymoon, and 2 weeks later, I got retrenched from my job, and I did not see that coming. It was just, holy crap! Just bought a house, got a mortgage, been retrenched. Like, well, this is not great. That kind of thing that happens. It's just like, wow, okay, I didn't see that. Yeah. So anything can happen that you're not
expecting. Yeah. It's that is the thing. There is literally, you could think of so many different scenarios where people put their power into security, and you could challenge every single one of them going, what if this happened? That could go tomorrow.
Yes.
Your 30-year relationship, like for some reason I've heard so many stories lately of 30-year relationships, and for some reason it's 30 years, suddenly just disappearing. Like suddenly, literally overnight.
You're approaching 30 years of marriage. Watch out. No, joking.
Yeah. Just keep getting married, like you can never reach it.
I was going to say, even if there's, if you look even on a bigger world scale too, even things like natural disasters that happen, you could completely have your home wiped out overnight by a tornado or a cyclone or a flood. Or
and how many people are not insured? Like,
yes,
so many people.
Yes. So all that type of thing that, that's completely out of anybody's control. So nobody could have any control over that happening or what's going to be the effect of that. Or even just like in the world that we live in at the moment, like with terrorism, like things just happening all the time. So say the case of America with 9/11 happening, how many people's identity of feeling safe in the world completely got taken away that day, or challenged. It didn't have to get taken away. It was perception of that being taken away. But things like that, that's really start to challenge of like, wow, okay, I took this for granted. Like I was putting my power into this thing to feel safe in the world, and now that's suddenly been gone or challenged or shifted. Yeah,
definitely. It's huge when you start to really dive into how much power we've put into the outside world to dictate over us what we do and what we don't do, what we think, what we don't think, what we say, what we don't say, all those things. And I think that's probably the point of all of this stuff is as soon as you're going to put power in the outside world and have your sense of security somewhere in your relationship or your job or money or your parents or your friends or who you think you are, how you show up, then all of it can be ripped away in a second. And it is finite. We're in a finite world here, so it can't exist forever. It's impossible. So it will go at some point. So I guess the conclusion we're coming to is none of it actually have power in the first place. And
putting the power into it. Yeah.
You've just been putting power into it. And it's shifting and changing all the time. So the only thing that stays steady and guaranteed is the infinite, is your true sense of power, your true self. Yeah, where you've come from. And going back to that, having that journey of going back to only putting your power into that sense of the internal and listening to your intuition, not listening to the opinions. I'm really big on that, not listening to everybody else's opinions on things, actually doing what feels true for you in each moment by listening to your own intuition, because that is the voice of the infinite fear.
Yeah. And that will challenge other people's identities and sense of security.
It will. So, you will end up saying stuff and doing stuff that really challenges people, particularly parents. So I found out.
We're both found
and the very people that you don't want to challenge will be the people you challenge.
We just kind of think about the end of the day, like the infinite being that we are, and we've come here into this world to have this experience of being human. This is ultimately all our creation anyway. So we've created these moments to happen in our life of being challenged, of being woken up, of a house getting taken away suddenly, of, you know, it's ultimately coming from us anyway. So to think that we're putting these power in these external things when it was actually us that set this all up for ourselves. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it kind of becomes quite hilarious at times. The sort of the things that we think are so important, and you know, like it's going to kill us, like all these things that we just think we're going to die if we have to face this scenario in our life, and then you realize, actually, I got through that. Like it's kind of like,
2 years later, you're like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Like you realize how much power you've put into something, and you have to sort of, as that infinite, knowing yourself as the source, you're the only, that's where your true sense of safety and security comes from, knowing that nothing can actually hurt you, nothing can be taken away, because it's all a creation of you anyway. And who you truly are is the infiniteness. It's not this body, it's not this finite world, it's not the ego, it's it's that true sense of home. Is what you can rely on at any point in time. Is probably what we all tap into in those moments, because we have to. We're kind of forced sometimes in those situations to do that, and that's all it is in my eyes. Is that it's just bringing us home to the truth. Just keep bringing your attention back to the actual truth of the situation, rather than getting engaged in what's going on.
Yeah, like when it all turns to shit, that's when you surrender, because you realize you don't have the answers anymore, and that's the point. You're meant to get to type thing. It's like you don't have the answers. Your finite self can't have the answers, like in an infinite world.
And how many of us would say that we micromanage the universe? I know that was definitely used to be my mode of operation. So,
totally. And you still do, like I do at times too. Still,
you still fall into it.
In there and control something, or change something, or manipulate something, and it's like, rather than just letting everything just be, it just is what it is. We get in there and we try and change what's already manifested. And we'll talk more about this part too in terms of manifestation, because we're trying to fix, change, or improve something that's already been created. It's like it's impossible to change that.
Yeah, you can't change it. It's already manifested in the world, so you can't actually change it at the end of the day.
You've got to replace it with something new. And I really like the saying, nothing's ever lost nor destroyed, it just changes form.
Yes.
And I think when you can really take that on and really ponder that for a while, it actually makes you relax a lot more, because you realize that nothing ever is disappearing. Like one of the key things for the ego that will make it jack up almost and get panicky, and you'll feel that sense of panic, is because it thinks it's losing something.
Yes.
So you can sort of reassure your ego that you're not going to lose something, that it will just change into another form. And sometimes it can be enough to settle yourself back down again.
Yes.
I'm going to lose this relationship. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose this money. And that's the ego going into panic. It doesn't like losing stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and it is our perception of those things too, because ultimately in the day, if it is all coming from us, you know, from a bigger scale, those things are usually the things that actually wake us up more and expand us more. You know, it might feel like death at the time to the ego, like a relationship falling apart. But then, you know, sometimes with a bit of hindsight and, you know, you kind of step back and go, wow, I'm really glad I'm not in that relationship anymore. Like at the time, I would definitely have not have said that, but I'm really glad I'm not in that, because I could see how this was playing out, or I was being this, or I was repressing this part of myself, or I was really letting that person control me and, you know, giving my power away to them. And so now I feel like I've got the power back. And so there's all these different, you know, insights that you get about yourself when we can step back objectively and look at a situation, because there will be people that will go through their whole life and be really bitter about a divorce and will take that to their grave. And so will therefore have that external experience of always feeling angry at the world and stuff showing up to kind of make them more angry and gain evidence of that, you know. And so that's, you can play that game too and gaining evidence to support your victim story, or you can play the other way of looking for the infiniteness of yourself and really identifying yourself as that. So completely different games.
yeah, I think it's nice. Like I just on this final point, I think we are seeing a shift. You know, we have been in the travel space for quite a while now, travel lifestyle space, not just sort of vacationing and all that sort of stuff, but somebody actually deciding to sell up everything, minimalize, get down, you know, strip all their possessions, perhaps put a bit in storage, perhaps not, and get on the road sort of thing, like actually having an experience of the world now as a minimalist. You might only have 50 pounds in luggage. That's all we own. we don't actually have any other possessions, and it's so freeing. But
Yes.
it takes a lot to get to that point because there's so many identities. Like, you know, the first thing we had to give up was all our books in Dubai. And I was like, you really start to realize when you have to get rid of stuff and just get on the road with one bag or two bags, what's important to you, and all your identities. Oh, I love my books. Like, I couldn't let those go, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, well, you can actually read online. It is possible
Yeah.
to have a Kindle. But all this stuff, it's amazing what comes up. But it is really nice to see a shift of a lot more people that are willing to, and you don't have to have a travel lifestyle. You could just be a minimalist. And I think we are seeing this around the world now in terms of, you know, tiny homes and minimalism, even when people
sustainability and interest in, you know, recycling and all that type of thing. Yeah, reusing.
Yeah, really downsizing or not filling up the house with so much stuff. Doing clear outs, you know, of your house and things like that. And it's so freeing because what it's doing is not just clearing out the stuff, but the weight of those things. Like you just have no idea until you start clearing them out what weight all that stuff does carry. And then suddenly there's space, and it's like, there's your infinite space back. Now what do you want to create? Like, what new stuff do you want to come into that space?
That's probably a good point, actually, is that we fill up our physical space with so much stuff that that infinite self, it's almost like it's reflected in our physical space around us. So if we live in a really cluttered space, hoarding stuff all the time, then there is actually no space in that infiniteness of us to actually fill it with new creations, like, because you've already filled it with so much stuff that there's no room for anything else to come in. So even just that simple act of decluttering, you don't have to be going on, you know, house sitting like or traveling. It's kind of just decluttering your house or your office, like maybe you've got papers all piled up. Just everyone's probably experienced that sense of freedom that you just get from that, because there is this sense of space that comes in. But then watch how quickly you try to fill that up with something else. So it's like, how much can you stay in that space and let it just be space for a while, and see what really would feel true to come through in that moment to fill it up with. And it might not actually be physical stuff. It might actually end up being an experience or a new hobby you want to take up. Or but something like that mental, you know, the mental space, I guess, that gets taken up by running these identities all the time, the energy that we put into them, which we're totally unconscious of most of the time.
It just takes so much energy to hold all that in place. Like, I think that's when you can take a step back, when you have stripped away a little bit, you get to see how many stories were being played out that you had to hold in place. It's exhausting. No wonder we're walking around like so dead tired. It's like,
I did have that experience about 4 years ago, and I had adrenal fatigue, so it was definitely about all the energy I was putting into my identity. So I had to definitely step back as a perfectionist and the caretaker all the time, and the savior wanting to fix the world, and the knowing everything and being independent, not asking for help. You know, all those things had to kind of come up to see, how much energy goes into holding our little world together, because we think that's our sense of security and safety in the world.
I like that summary, that holding your world together.
Yeah, it is like that. So I think, how tightly are you holding everything together?
Just on the edge of holding it all together. And if you got that feeling, then there's really some stuff that could be looked at. Yeah.
Which will feel scary to your ego, but if you really tune in, there is that feeling of freedom that that's the truth of it. It's that expansiveness, the freedom, the truth of who you really are will come from that experience of going through it. And that's what I guess our group is kind of all about. What we're sort of looking to do is we want to help people on that journey too, because we know it's hard, and you can do it on your own, but it's hard. It's harder to do it on your own. It's better to do it. It's more fun with people around you that can support you and see your blind spots.
About you. Bring a bit more humour into it.
Exactly.
Get quite serious. That's the other part of the
humor. Serious. Definitely done that. So,
no, that's cool. Good. All right. We got a new topic tomorrow.
Yes.
Still on the ego, but we're going to have a look at another aspect of it. Pick down, Mandy. Do you know what we're going to do?
No, I don't know. Let's see what comes up. We had, I think we talked about acknowledgement and security quite a bit. We probably touched a little bit on things like acceptance and some of those others in there as well. But there was appreciation and recognition and few of those other things. So, yeah, so we could probably jump into some of those a bit more tomorrow.
Yeah, we probably have covered the two big ones
I think
now. So, yeah, we can probably bundle the others pretty much together.
I think so too. They kind of overlay.
And intermeshed, don't they? Like,
yeah, I was just going to say they kind of overlay a lot of the time. Yeah, or you're doing multiple things at once. You know, you're looking for multiple things sometimes in situations as well. So, yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent.
Oh, that was good. That's fun.
Well, have a good day, everybody.
All right. Be good. Stay infinite.
See you tomorrow.
Good.
Bye.